5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
Hello, listening audience. Good evening and welcome again to Profiler. We have in conversation this evening an Imam. Yes, you heard me right. We have an Imam. He's a Muslim. His name is Imam Habib and he is from the Colchester Mosque. He studied for 10 years and we have various subject matters to discuss. So I urge you, stay put. Don't change the dial. Keep it locked on Truth Music Radio. Imam Habib, as I say in your language, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you?
I'm not bad. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming onto the program this evening and having this important conversation with us.
Oh, it's great to be here. I'm very glad to be here.
Yes. How is your day so far?
Yeah, today's been good. Been leading the prayers in the mosque.
Yes.
And been developing a course on gratitude at the moment.
Gratitude.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So it's been doing a little bit of filming for that as well.
Uh-huh. I see. Let's go into it. If you don't mind, can you just tell the listening audience a bit about yourself? I know we spoke briefly. You have been studying for over 10 years now, but can you just share that with the listening audience?
Yeah, no worries. My name's Habib, and I'm an Imam in Colchester in the United Kingdom. It's about 60 miles from London. And I studied Islam traditionally for about 10 years. I studied in about 4 different traditional institutes.
Yes.
The course I studied covered the Quran, which is the Islamic holy book. We also covered the sayings of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And we also studied how we can derive rulings from the Quran and the things the Prophet said and did. And this studies kind of culminate with the title of being a scholar, so somebody who's able to speak about Islam and lead a Muslim community in the Islamic direction.
Right.
Then for the past 3 years, I've been leading the Colchester community. And this involves helping the Muslims in their day-to-day lives. So this could be something like marriage disputes, conducting marriages, conducting funerals, giving advice to the average Muslim on how to live the day-to-day life, and any kind of advice which Muslims need, and obviously focused mainly on the spirit of the Muslim.
I see. Well, thank you for that, Imam Habib. Let's go into it, what we have to discuss this evening. But before I go into the questions, have you always been a Muslim from birth? Is that your background, your family has always been Muslims?
Yeah, I was born into a Muslim family. My father was also an Imam, as is my brother, and they're also religious priests. So, yeah, I've been in a quite religious family.
So it was a necessity that you actually followed within this line. Did you have a choice? And what if you decided not to carry on in this pursuit or this line?
My brother I've got 2 brothers. So one of them is an Imam, the other one is a software engineer.
Yes.
And there wasn't really much. So it was really my choice to decide to become a priest. I think the spirituality definitely fascinated me, and the way that I could see that the human beings kind of operated in a physical world, but they were so affected by the condition of the spirit.
Yes.
And they couldn't see that. You can't really see that very easily, but it did fascinate me. So it was definitely because of my own interest that I thought it'd be really interesting to see how that what is this all about, basically.
I see, because you often hear of some stories, and some of it horrific, where somebody that's from that line, that is born into an Islamic or a Muslim family. And if they don't want to carry on in that line, you've seen certain films or documentary where it becomes, you are the one that's actually pointed out, and it leads to isolation. And can you verify? Does that happen within?
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does.
Yes.
The thing is, personally, I think that's actually, so this is one of my favorite points. Because we have a generation gap in this country. So in the United Kingdom, we've got this generation gap. So we've got Muslims who've come from India and Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, and they've come over into this country. And while they were growing up, they were kind of, dictated what they were meant to believe. They were told their terms by their parents. You believe this, and this is, critical thinking was not encouraged. Now, here in the UK, and I think now all over the world, critical thinking is now encouraged a lot more. So if as Muslims or as imams or as religious people or people of the spirit, if we don't encourage critical thinking, well, what's going to happen is the kids who are suppressed, if you suppress their thinking, they're going to smell it. They're going to realize that you're a bit desperate. They're going to realize that, this is kind of, there's something dodgy going on here.
Yes.
So that does not help the spiritual cause at all. So based on that, the way I teach in the UK is for people who think critically. So one of the things which happens actually is we have this thing where you may have heard of honor.
Yes.
In family. So honor is where if somebody leaves the faith, then they've ruined the honor of the family.
Yes.
So because of that, this person, the father has to disown them and say they're not part of my family because they're not Muslim. Now, that really doesn't help somebody's belief. Because you're saying that if you don't believe my religion, then I'm going to disown you. So one of the things that this person, if you disown somebody, what they're going to think is that you're desperate for them to be Muslim.
Yes.
And desperation is actually, I see as a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you don't even trust your creator. You don't trust the divine to guide your own kids. That you can't say to your kids, discover Islam, here's the religion, and find it out for yourself. You see your own spirit in action. So one of the things which I really try to do is to try and come away from telling people that this is right and this is wrong, and instead give them some guidelines and let them freely kind of work it out for themselves. And that's really worked very well with the kids that I teach and the adults as well. It gives them a much more deeper dimension to the understanding of Islam, I think.
Yes. So choice is encouraged.
Yeah, definitely. Even the Quran, if you were to open the Quran, God himself, he says that there's signs. I mean, God speaks about the signs of the sky and the trees and creation. But he says the signs are for people who think, for people who think deeply. So the key is actually for people who are open to deep thinking. And that's really where the guidance is kind of found, I think.
Whilst we're on the subject, Imam, let's say I'm born within an Islamic family and I'm expected to uphold Islamic traditions. And like you've pointed out, whilst choice is allowed and you can explore the options and so on, I decided, to go against my traditions and family. And let's say I marry a Jewish or a Christian girl. How would that be looked upon within my family and Islam?
From an Islamic perspective, you're allowed to get married to somebody outside of the religion. So marriage in itself is actually allowed. Now, from a strictly Islamic perspective, what Islam tries to do is to maintain the religion within a family. So to try and get married and, try and encourage the kids to be Muslim. So that's something to encourage. However, from a cultural perspective, what you'll definitely find in our culture is that people will, depending on the kind of family you're in or the type of background people have, some people will definitely look down upon this kind of thing.
Yes.
And they would discourage it. And some people may go as far as disowning this kind of children. If you have a son or you have a daughter who gets married to a different family, they'd be so sad about this that they may disown.
Yes.
And I know people like that who they get married to somebody against the will of the parent. And the parent, I don't think it has much to do with the religion, if I'm honest. I think it has more to do with the control which the parents want to have on their children.
Yes.
If that makes sense. So to say this is an Islamic problem would probably be a bit unfair on the religion.
Yes.
I think it's more of a kind of a control problem, which is very culturally inherited, where some parents believe that their kids should do exactly what they want. And that can obviously lead to problems.
Let's delve into this. I mean, Islam, Imam, is right up there with the other two big religions such as Christianity and Judaism. They both claim descent from the patriarch Abraham. Christianity certainly do, coming out of Judaism, which claims direct descendant from Abraham and his son Isaac. Now, obviously, as an Imam and a learned man, I'm sure you've come across this. So my question to you, Imam, and I want to speak on Ishmael for a minute. Talk to me about Abraham and the importance of Abraham within the Islamic faith.
Abraham is a pivotal. He's known as the grandfather of the messengers of the Prophet.
Yes.
And as probably the most revered figure in history after the Prophet Muhammad himself. So this is probably the most revered figure after him. And right now, on Friday, which is coming, we have the day of Eid al-Adha. And that whole day, and even the whole pilgrimage, right now we're in the pilgrimage season for Muslim, where all Muslims go to Mecca. And when they go to Mecca, this whole 5-day ritual is about honoring the life of Abraham. So they honor all of the tests which he went through, all of the sacrifices which he made, and it's really all about the life of Abraham. So this is one of the fundamental pillars of Islam, and it's obligatory for every Muslim to do once in their life. And this pillar, it's something that shows how important Abraham actually is in the Muslim faith.
Yes.
And every Muslim, even if they're not performing the pilgrimage in Mecca, even here in the UK, we're still required to sacrifice an animal during these days of pilgrimage. So
a physical animal?
Yeah.
Such as what kind of animal would you normally sacrifice?
So it could be a cow or a lamb or a sheep or something, or a goat, something like that. And you have special people for that sacrifice? What is it similar to the Judaism priesthood? Yeah. So in this country, obviously we'll do it in the farms, in the slaughterhouses, and we'll try and get an imam to have a license to carry that out.
Yes.
If not, then some people can do it in different countries. So the idea of doing this has a little bit to do with feeding the poor as well. So the meat from the animal should go to poor people and should be used to try and eliminate poverty.
Yes.
So very often it's encouraged to do these in poorer countries where the meat can be distributed amongst the poorer people.
Right.
So very often in some parts of the world, there'll be families who the only time of the year they ever really get to eat meat is during the Eid days, when people donate meat to the people who are poor. I
see. I'm veering a bit here, Imam Habib. I want to come back to Abraham after this. But since we're on the subject of meat, I mean, everywhere you go, you see halal butcher shops and, the meat markets, the meats are all halal. But that word halal, where does it come from? I've yet to understand the meaning of it.
Yeah. The word halal, it just means permissible.
Permissible?
Permissible. So it's the opposite of haram. So we have, it's a category of action. So we have halal and haram. haram means impermissible, and halal means permissible. So halal, for Muslims, everything is halal. So it doesn't just apply to meat. So for example, it's halal to drink water. It's halal for us to go for a walk in the park.
Yes.
It's halal for us to have vegetables. Now, when it comes specifically to meat, and why you'll find halal stamped onto meat, is because meat which is not slaughtered Islamically is not halal. So that's not allowed for Muslims to consume. So that's why when it comes to meat, this is where we have a dispute. Because if it was a cucumber, or if it was a tomato or something, then there's no dispute. Everybody agrees it's halal. Nobody says it's haram. But when it comes to a sheep or a cow or something, now there's a dispute. Is it halal or is it haram? If it's slaughtered in accordance with the Islamic principles, then it will be halal. And if it isn't, then it won't be permissible for Muslims. That's why we often find, in terms of meat, that Muslims will be quite cautious, and they'll make sure that it's got a halal kind of label on it.
I see. Now, clear this up as well on the subject of meat. I understand that according to Islam, the eating of pork, swine, is forbidden. Am I correct? Yes. Now, I've been to the meat market though, Imam Habib, and I've actually asked the butcher if they sell pork there, and he says no, Islam don't permit this. But I find that they're selling like crabs and certain fishes without fins and scales. Do Islam not abide by the rest of the dietary law, such as not eating fish with fins and scales and shrimp and crabs? Is it just swine that that is prohibited within Islam?
Yeah, this is a whole topic of its own when it comes to which meat is and isn't allowed. So generally, predators are not allowed. So swine is not allowed.
Yes.
Obviously, dogs are not allowed. Sharks and tigers and lions, none of that is allowed. If it's a predator, it's not allowed. Now, when it comes to fish, when it comes to sea animals, there's actually a lot of leniency to the extent that some Muslims believe that all sea animals are halal, are allowed. So therefore, prawns and crabs and shrimps, they all become allowed. And most Muslims do actually believe that these are not haram, these are halal, and these are permissible for eating.
So is the fact that there is, one can decide whether it's haram or halal, is there no particular place in the Quran or any authoritative scriptures within Islam that actually clearly defines what can be eaten and what can't be eaten?
Yeah, so there's quite a clear definition. So in terms of predatory animals, they're not allowed. And
that's written in the Quran? That's actually written in the Quran?
Yeah, so anything which can attack somebody else. Now, the thing is, when it comes to animals of the sea, the Quran tends to give us the understanding that everything in the sea is allowed. But then we have some kind of narrations from the Prophet. Now, the scripture from the Prophet here varies.
Yes.
So we get some impression that it's all allowed. Sometimes we get the impression that it's not allowed. And there's kind of a little bit of a discrepancy. So that's why there's both opinions in terms of the sea animals. So the sea animals have a bit of discrepancy. Some scholars will say you're allowed all sea animals. Some will say no, you're not allowed some of them.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for adding to that. Let's come back up, Imam, to Abraham. Now, within Christianity and Judaism, they both, as we stated before, claim descent from Abraham down to his son Isaac and so on. Now, within the Islamic understanding or the scriptures, Abraham had Isaac. Isaac was sacrificed, but I was reading something where it differs in the Islamic record, where Ishmael is actually was actually sacrificed. Can you talk to me a bit about that, the listening audience?
Yeah, so as Muslims, within Islam, there's actually both views here.
Yes, go on.
But I'd say the majority view is that Ismail was sacrificed.
So the majority Imam holds the view that Ishmael was sacrificed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the more common view.
Yes.
However, in Islam, this isn't really considered to be a hot topic of debate. So when it will come in the Quran that, Abraham sacrificed his son, we just most people agree that it was Ismail. And then we'll have a little section there which will say, well, some scholars say that it was actually the other son.
Yes.
So it's not made into a big deal in Islam. Obviously, we understand that other religions, like the Jews, they tend to, make a slightly more of a point about this.
Yes.
But based on Islamic theology, it's actually not that important who was actually sacrificed, because we actually believe in the sanctity of both of them, and obviously they both survived anyway. They didn't pass away. So because they both carried on living, which son it was, it isn't actually a really big deal.
I suppose, Imam, as a point of reference, and I want to speak of the Temple Mount towards the end of the program, so we'll come back to that. But I suppose that as a point, in reference to the claiming of the Temple Mount, then it would be paramount to understand which son was actually sacrificed. Because if it's Isaac, then according to the Torah, then Isaac would actually be the promised seed of Abraham, and Ishmael would just be his other son from Hagar. So I guess this is where Judaism points to, stick closely to the fact that it was Isaac that's actually been sacrificed, because then everything would actually belong to Isaac, wouldn't it?
I understand that. I think this is why, because as Muslims, we actually believe in the honor and dignity of both of them.
I see.
Quite highly. And I think this is why there's a bit of a discrepancy maybe in the Jewish faith.
Yes.
There's when one wins and the other it isn't as valuable. But as Muslims, regardless of who it actually was, we actually would have the same respect and value for both of them, regardless. And that's why I think that's the reason why it's not as hotly contested in the Islamic faith.
Right.
Because regardless of who it is, we actually have utmost respect for both of the sons of Ibrahim. They were both messengers. They both received divine inspiration from God. So,
my follow-up, my question is, within Islam, then, do you have Islamic scholars are you saying that Islamic scholars also confirm that it could have been Isaac that's been sacrificed? Are there Islamic scholars that's actually saying this?
Yeah, so there are Islamic scholars who would again, it's a minority.
I see.
But that opinion does exist within Islam as well.
Let's move on then. Talk to me, Imam, about Ishmael, because from Ishmael, that's the lineage from which gave birth to Muhammad the Prophet. Can you speak to me then about Ishmael and him given, Muhammad coming from that lineage? What was that? The Quraysh tribe?
Sorry, what was the question?
Yes, can you talk to me a bit about Ishmael then, his importance within Islam? Is he he's considered the forefather of Islam? Is that how you look at it?
Yeah, so again, he's known as the son of Ibrahim, of Abraham.
Yes.
And primarily he's kind of known more as the son. So our father figure is Abraham.
Yes.
And Ismail is his son. And from his lineage, we believe the tribes of the Jews came.
From Ishmael's lineage?
Yeah.
You mean the 12 sons of Jacob come from Ishmael?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's very, very important. And from his kind of from his lineage, a lot of very pious people came. And obviously this is again mentioned in the Quran, because the Prophet Abraham prayed for his lineage a lot. So he wasn't just worried about himself or just his sons, but he made so the Quran mentions the prayer of Abraham, which was accepted by God, as the prayer which prayed for him and his sons to keep them all on the straight path. So we believe that from him we had a really good following of Islam from him.
Uh-huh. Okay, I see. Because the discrepancy that we would find, or the controversy, I should say, is that from the Torah, Isaac had Jacob, and then Jacob the 12 sons, and from in the Torah, Ishmael had also 12 sons. So I see the controversy. But you're saying within Islam that Ishmael actually has given birth to the 12 sons of Jacob. So I see the issue there. Let's move on, Imam, and let's talk about the Prophet Muhammad, because everywhere you turn, you head into Brixton, or you hear people speak of. There's a famous mosque there. I'm talking about the one in East London. Apologies. And they talk about the Prophet Muhammad. We had some conversation there. How central? Well, Muhammad is central to Islam. Why is he so central? I mean, he's considered to be a prophet. But I've asked the question. I would like to know from you, Imam, some of the prophecies that, Muhammad actually gave. Talk to us about that.
So his centrality is based on him being the final prophet.
The final prophet.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what the reason we believe in him, or we believe him to be central, is because his guidance is the latest. His guidance is the most relevant until the end of time. And Muslims and Muslim scholars have always kind of referred to other texts as well. So they've referred to the texts of Jesus and the texts of Moses and any previous scripture that we've had. They've also used it and revered it and referred to it as sacred text. The only difference is that when it came to the Prophet Muhammad, he brought a completion to all of the prophets that came before.
You mean such as the prophets in Torah and Tanakh, like Isaiah and Jeremiah and so on?
Yeah. So most of the prophets that I mentioned in the other books are also accepted by Muslims. In fact, we believe in all of the prophets. That there was hundreds of thousands of prophets that came.
Yes.
And they all came with the same fundamental. But the details, which is the way the Prophet Muhammad explains the details, is the way we believe is the most appropriate way to follow until the end of time. So between his time and the Day of Judgment and the end of time, the most appropriate guidance to follow is his, as it was the one which is revealed the latest. So
Muhammad is the final authority, basically.
Yeah.
Right. So then how do you deal within Islam then? And I'm sure you've had this before, those who would say that obviously Islam came, 600 years after Christianity and so on. And you've had prophets like we mentioned before, as you've stated that Islam make reference to the prophets before, like Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel. So when you study Islam, I can't see an actual prophecy like from Muhammad. What would you say to those people who say, give us one prophecy from Muhammad? And when they could have actually give you many from like Isaiah and Jeremiah, since he's given the final authority. How would you answer that?
What do you mean by prophecy?
Like when you read in Torah and Tanakh, Isaiah gives a prophecy about, the birth of Christ, and you have other prophets before talk about the destruction of certain nations or empire. So when the term Muhammad, the prophet, comes up, then somebody might ask a question, okay, then tell me a prophecy from Muhammad. How would you answer that assertion?
One of the ways I'd answer it is that, your entire faith can't be dependent on one prophecy. So I couldn't give you one prophecy to change your mind. But there are several prophecies which are given by the Prophet. So I think there's so many that can really be stated. Let me just take one just for this sake. So, for example, while the Prophet was in his very early days, in fact, before he passed away, he made a prophecy. This is when the Muslims were about 200 or 300 in number.
Yes.
He made a prophecy that the Muslims would conquer Syria and would conquer the Persian Empire and the Roman Empire. And this was at a time when there were just a few Muslims, really, just a few hundred Muslims. And then that prophecy, the Prophet passed away. But after the Prophet passed away, those exact prophecies came true. So the way he said that the castle of the empire of the Emperor of Persia would fall into the hands of the Muslims, it fell into the hands of the Muslims.
Yes.
So the prophecies which he made, that's kind of an example of the way that they came true. Other prophecies which he made are how the world will evolve.
Yes.
Just like in the modern world, like we have certain things becoming commonplace, like nudity becoming a lot more normal, for example.
Yes.
So this is a prophecy which he made thousands of years, hundreds of years ago. But today we see that kind of becoming a lot more normal.
And these are written down in Islamic records? Within the Quran?
Yes. No. So his prophecies aren't in the Quran. So Islamic scripture, Islamic source is primarily, there's two scriptures. One is the Quran and one is the Hadith. The
Hadiths.
Yeah. So the Hadith is something, is a record of what the Prophet said or did.
Yes.
Basically. So we'll have that record. So based on what he said, his prophecies will be taken from what he said. And then these are recorded by his companion.
Yes. Yes, go on, Imam. So they are found written down within the Hadiths?
Yeah.
Right. Now, let me ask you this, Imam Habib. A few years ago, there was some uproar made. I believe somebody did some indecent drawing of the Prophet, and it caused quite an uproar. I don't know if you can remember this.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, tell me, people who would, ridicule or say something ill against the Prophet, why is it taken as such an affront?
I would say, so this is, there's a response. So the individuals responded. There was a response from individuals, and there was a response from the Islamic scholars, and there was a response from the Muslim institutions.
Yes.
So there was a professional response, there was a scholarly response, and then the uproar was probably caused by what I call the individual response, just the average person, the average Muslim, who is walking around.
Yes.
So again, if you want to see what the Islamic response is, you're probably much better off looking at the scholarly response.
Yes.
Like how did the University of Cairo respond? How did the University of Medina respond?
Yes.
How did the leading Muslim scholars respond? So that's usually not put in the media, how they responded. So what comes in the media and what the uproar usually is, that's caused by the average Muslim who probably doesn't really know much about Islam. Now, the reason, which is, I think the question you're asking is, why are people so angry so easily? And that would, I think, be because of the way that they express their love for the Prophet.
I see.
So they would say that
overzealousness.
So how dare somebody say this about my Prophet, and I'm going to go and solve this problem and go and kill this person. I think there was a death threat given to the person who had drawn the cartoon, and I guess that's just their way of. I'm not trying to justify it here in any way.
Yes.
But in terms of answering the question, their immediate response is that this is my Prophet and I love him, and how do I show my love? My God is going to ask me, that people came and they insulted your Prophet, so what did you do to protect your Prophet? Kind of thing.
Yes.
That's the mentality they kind of come up with. So I think that's why people do respond like that. I definitely don't think it's a sensible way to respond.
Yes.
But again, it kind of comes from a place of ignorance. If they don't know the official way to respond, if they don't feel heard, it's kind of they feel victimized. They feel that the world is against me. So, they feel this kind of victim mentality. So they don't really know how to properly or professionally kind of respond.
I see. Now, Imam, there's something going on across the world right now where once upon a time, especially I would think that within the Islamic world that would be considered taboo. There is a push, Imam, to normalize certain behaviors. And the behavior I'm speaking about is homosexuality, the, LGBTQ movement that's taken the world by storm. In fact, it's been legalized in, many places, across the earth. What's Islam's view on homosexuality and, just the whole LGBTQ, movement?
So as a movement, I think the Prophet, peace be upon him, prophesied that these kind of movements would come about.
Yes.
That kind of indecency would become more normal. I mean, if you're going to talk about this, we could just say the same thing for nudity.
Yes.
I mean, if you go back 20 years, nudity was not normal. You wouldn't go to a concert and see nudity the way that you do today. Even if you go to quite a professional kind of concert nowadays, there's an expectation that there's kind of young girls, with very short skirts kind of dancing around in that area.
Yes.
Whereas if you go back 100 years, if you go back into, a slightly more traditional British society here in the UK, we see that the dress code was much more modest.
Yes.
Females would be more covered. And it would be a bit more kind of sensible, to be honest. I mean, the females would be more covered. And then just nowadays, I just saw an article on how rapidly the amount of nudity which became normal happened.
Yes.
And it happened so quickly, and it became normalized. I'm talking about nudity here. So that's one evil, and that essentially is just as evil as, homosexuality or gambling or, pornography. The industries have blown up within the past few years.
Yes.
And, I think in terms of Islam, the reason I'm kind of giving these few other things to compare homosexuality with is because homosexuality is a sin in Islam, just like sex before marriage is a sin in Islam. Just like pornography and masturbation is a sin in Islam.
Yes.
Many Muslims do it. The difference in homosexuality, I would say a lot of it is actually cultural rather than Islamic. So, for example, in our culture, you'll have, if somebody is homosexual, they'll actually be, in the Muslim culture, they'll be outcast a lot quicker than somebody who's kind of having sex before marriage, for example. Or somebody who's got a girlfriend and somebody who's kind of seeing a girl. Or even a girl who's walking around, with very, very tight clothes or no clothes at all.
Yes.
So nudity has been kind of, people do it, but it doesn't have that same impact as homosexuality does. But I think this added impact, this kind of overreaction to homosexuality, is more cultural than Islamic. Because an Islamic response would be balanced, that nudity would have the same, oh my God, how come there's so much nudity? You can't have nudity, and completely shunning nudity. doing the same thing for gambling. Doing the same thing for, so I'm not saying it's, it's a small thing, but it's the only problem that we have, and the way that it's addressed should be the way that all sins are addressed. So in Islam, if we believe pornography is bad, we try our best to try and suppress pornography as much as we can.
Yes.
And we call it out, we say it's a bad thing, it's bad for the spirit, and people should try and avoid it. Same thing with homosexuality. If you're going to try and start flirting with a boy, because let's be honest, I mean, the way that people in the Muslim world are flirting with girls, boys are flirting with girls before marriage. It's actually less likely that a boy is going to get married to a boy, or a man's going to get married to a man, or a girl's going to get married to a girl. Does that make sense? The problem of nudity is much more. The problem of immodesty is much more.
So
I think these are problems.
Yes, go on, man.
You might as well answer the question.
Now, I was gonna say, here I am in the mosque, and I'm listening to Imam Habib teaching, and I raise a question to say I'm a homosexual, and it's a lifestyle that I enjoy, and so on. What I'm asking is, what would be your word to me, whether in private, or what would you say? Are you going to tell me that according to the Quran, this is going to happen, and I should try to abandon that lifestyle? Is that what you would say?
Well, this is beautiful. This is a good question. Because, again, like I said, imagine if, and sorry for not being direct here, but it would be the same. So when somebody comes to the mosque and they're doing a sin, then my job is to help them come out of the sin. Now, if somebody opens up and says, I am doing a sin.
Yes.
This is actually very, very rare. Yeah, and this is why I don't like the discussion, because most of the time when somebody asks a question about homosexuality, they don't come and say I'm a homosexual. They come and say, oh, what if somebody's a homosexual? Maybe what if my son becomes homosexual? What if my cousin's brother or sister becomes homosexual? How do I deal with them? They don't ask about themselves, but this is actually perfect. If somebody's asking for themselves, then now as an imam, my job is to do this, the Islamic term is called tarbiyah, is to try and help guide them out of the sin.
Yes.
So I would recommend that. Well done for telling me this. Thank you for opening up. I'm going to say my number one advice: this action of yours is going to be bad for your soul. Yeah, you might think that you enjoy it, but your soul is not. It's going to contradict with your soul's values. Yeah, your soul is not going to enjoy doing this. It's actually going to cause you more pain than you would even realize.
Yes. Yeah.
Just like if somebody's watching pornography,
yes.
I mean, they might think, well, I love this pornography lifestyle. I love watching porn. I love masturbating. I love, all this pornography lifestyle. But the harm that it does to your soul is actually invisible to you and your mind.
Yes.
It's something which you need a spiritual expert to help tell you. So I would say both of these sins, watching porn and being a homosexual, or even thinking that you need to be transgender.
Yes.
These are the things which you may consider with your mind as something which you need to do, but they will harm your soul. So that would be my advice. So now if somebody's actually open about it in private, how I would help them is I would get them to actually look at it and understand it, and actually slowly, by talking about it a little bit more, we'll actually notice how it's not actually something which is going to give them any kind of satisfaction or happiness.
And in brief, Imam, here is the powers that be now that comes along and say you are being homophobic. Aren't you afraid of that stigma?
I'm not homophobic. I mean, what do you mean I'm homophobic? I'm not scared of homosexuals. I mean, I've probably got friends who are homosexual, and I know people who are homosexual who do amazing things in the world.
Yes, but you're standing for the truth.
Yeah, so, I mean, if somebody's a homosexual, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily, they need to be, killed or something. It doesn't mean, I'm not scared of them. I don't think they're necessarily intrinsically a very bad person.
Yes.
But just like I would say with somebody who's in the music industry, who's in the porn industry, there's people who are in the music industry who dance with girls who are extremely motivational.
Yes.
They may motivate girls to their highest potential. They may say that they may be people who make music, which is inspiration.
Yes.
But at the same time, they're on stage dancing with girls.
Yes.
Now, that's great. Some people, you might inspire some people to be better Muslim by your music. But, unfortunately, this act of dancing with girls on stage, well, I'm not going to say that's great. Same with homosexuals. You may be proud of who you are and, your homosexuality, but I would say that's an act of yours which, would be nice. If you left that, you'd be a better person.
All right, let's move on to another topic, Imam, if you will. And come back up to the Torah and the Tanakh. Within the Torah and the Tanakh, it is said that it is a sin within the scriptures for anyone to, let's say, bow down to a stone, a rock. And I hope you understand where I'm going with this question. Now, within Islam, there is the Kaaba stone, and there are those that would say that the Kaaba stone is idolatry, which according to Islam and the Quran, idolatry is forbidden, right? So talk to me about the Kaaba stone, its origin. Talk to me about why is it considered central to the pilgrimage?
Okay, so the idolatry, let's deal with polytheism. So we have Islam, which is monotheistic, so we believe in one God. And then the thing which we shun and the thing which we avoid is having more than one worthy of worship. And I think as a God, you believe is a being or a divine being or a source which has ultimate power. This is what we believe God to be.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to polytheism or idolatry, that would by definition be when you say that no longer is there one God, but there's actually another God, or there's gods which also have power.
Oh, just a second, Iman. I understand that. Just to interject. So let's say somebody who's praying to a rock or praying to a tree, is that not considered idolatry within Islam?
If you're praying to the sun or to the tree or to the rock, to the rock itself, then yeah, that would be considered idolatry, yes.
Right. So what's the difference then with this Kaaba stone
So in Islam, we don't believe we pray to the Kaaba. We don't worship the Kaaba. The worship is not done over the Kaaba, and the worship is not done over the stone.
Yes.
The Kaaba is simply a symbol of Allah, of God Himself. Just like a mosque is known as a house of God, a house of Allah. It's a spiritual place where Muslims go to worship. The Kaaba, the tomb, that's known symbolically as a house of worship. That's the primary house of Allah. And the stone is a stone which was sent by Allah from heaven. And the stone is not worship. The stone is simply a symbol where worship takes place around. And I think in terms of this, I mean, you're then, because if we extend this out, we don't worship the stone, because otherwise then when you go to the mosque, you're worshipping the carpet, because you're going to pray on the carpet and face towards Mecca. It's the place towards which we pray, and it's a direction which we establish. But the reason we have that direction is because that's the house of God on earth.
Yes. Well, let me ask you this, Imam, and I hope you will indulge me with this question, just so the listening audience can actually, understand Islam a little bit better. But when you look in the media and you go on YouTube or, any such media like that, and you see the pilgrimage in Mecca, you would normally see people going around the Kaaba stone, which there is, if I'm wrong on this, you can correct me, but the black stone, a part of it is shaped like the vulva, and there are those that would say, okay, it seems like the feminine part, you know what I mean? It seems, off. So shed some light on that. Is it the symbol of the feminine part? Because that's out there in certain records as well. Can you clear that up?
That's the first time I've heard that one.
Is it? Yes, because there's a record.
The feminine part doesn't come, that's not the stone. That's the bit which holds the stone.
Yes. That's what I'm making reference to, yes.
Well, it was just the most appropriate shape to hold the stone. It had nothing to do with, if you want to, we could take the stone out and it would be the same thing and get rid of that whole thing. The feminine thing the shape doesn't have much to do with the religion. That was just a place to hold it. And that was just to make it, a nice design kind of thing.
I'm sure you must have heard, Imam, of those who would object to Islam as a religion itself, and they would draw a reference from what we're discussing, such as this stone looks like the female part. And in fact, I'm looking at one document where this critic said that the Kaaba is from an old word meaning virgin. So therefore it's been tied back into the feminine parts of a woman, so that's out there. I don't know if you want to look into that, but I'm just telling you some of the stuff that's actually out there concerning, this particular stone and how it's tied to, the worship of the feminine. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Muslims don't do it. I've never heard of it before. It's got nothing to do with Islam. And I think, if you ask me the opposite, that do we worship the male and do we believe, there's some references in scripture which kind of, feminists may have a problem with that, why do we suppress women's rights and so on. But if you're asking me that question, I could maybe, try and give that some context. But to worship the feminine, well, that would be brilliant, because then if we wouldn't have any kind of problem with answering feminist questions.
Let me see.
Honestly, it's a new question.
It's a new question.
Yeah.
You can look into that one. But let me ask you this, Imam. It is recommended within Islam for a Muslim to actually, go to Mecca at least once in their lifetime. And going to Mecca, in some of the records and the videos that we've seen, that you would normally march around or they would walk around. Is it the Kaaba stone? The cube? They go around that. And I've seen some people actually, leaning out. They're touching that particular stone. If I go to Mecca and go around it and I don't want to touch it, is that going to be frowned upon? Is it the requirement that I touch the actual cube? And why is it important for me to touch it if that's the case?
Okay, so that so now we're talking about ritual here, and ritual things. They're not exactly defined by logic. Just like praying 5 times a day, or giving 2.5% of your wealth as a pillar of Islam. So again, we're talking about this pillar here, which is pilgrimage, and part of it involves touching the stone. Now, in answer to your question, if you didn't touch the stone, perfectly fine, no problem. Because in all honesty, it's not easy. It's not easy at all to touch the stone, especially with the rush that's going on and the traffic and the crowds that you have. So touching the stone would not be expected, and usually you can do an action towards the stone from a distance. The stone is part of the ritual, just like we pray facing towards the cube, and the ritual of Hajj, the ritual of pilgrimage, involves the stone, just like many other things involve other kinds of monuments. Just like there's another part of the pilgrimage where you have to kind of run or walk from one mountain to another mountain. So there's different monuments and sacred objects which are used in the religion.
Yes.
But you don't have to kind of kiss it or touch it if you don't want to, because there's a lot of crowd, so you'll do it from a distance.
What's the origin, in brief, Imam Habib? What's the origin of that cube or that stone? Where does it come from?
So the stone came from paradise. So this was sent out. It was a white stone originally, and the virtue which was given that if you kiss the stone, then your sins will be forgiven.
So I could commit a crime and go to Mecca and come back forgiven if I kiss the stone?
It was a virtue. So again, this is metaphoric rather than encouraging people. So there's many things in Islam, I'm sure, as with Christianity and Judaism. There's many things which will forgive your sin. But again, it's metaphoric. It doesn't mean that you can start committing crimes and getting your sins forgiven. It doesn't apply like that. It wouldn't apply if you committed a crime and then try to get your sins forgiven in that way. It's part of the purification process. So when you go to Mecca, part of your purification is that your sins are forgiven, and it gives you a chance to have a fresh start. Now, if you had committed a crime, if you had stolen if you had robbed a bank, then you would have to, as part of your purification, repay the bank the money that you had stolen. So it wouldn't kind of absolve you of any physical kind of obligation which you had, but it's part of the spiritual purification in terms of that. So that's the kind of virtue. So it would forgive your sins, and then because of people continuously kissing it, and the sins are what made it black. So you may have noticed the stone is now black. So it's the sins of the people which actually which actually made it black.
So that means then the stone is actually central to Islam then, because if somebody can kiss it and the stone absorbs the sin and it turns black, then it tells them that the stone is actually very, very central.
Yes.
I see.
Definitely.
Now, let's move on, Imam Habib. And I have a few more questions here. Why Friday on the Sabbath? Because Abraham, as you mentioned, Abraham kept Sabbath as well. And according to certain records, he kept, the seventh day, which is the Saturday. Why do Muslims, Islam, the tradition is for Friday gathering? Why not the seventh day? That's my question.
I have no idea. So just like with other religions, Islam has many virtuous days.
Yes.
In the year. So we have the Eid, which is on Friday. We have as in this Friday, we have the special day of the year. Then we have Ramadan, which has lots of virtuous days.
That's your fasting, yes? Ramadan?
Yeah, the fasting days. The Hajj days, which we're in right now, which is the pilgrimage days. There's a lot of virtuous days. Now, in terms of the 7 days of the week, Islamically, the Friday is the most blessed day. And the reason for this, the simple reason is this is what we were told by Allah. This is a divine decree that the holy day for Muslims is going to be Friday.
And that's written down, Imam, within the Quran as scripture?
Yeah. So the reason for the main reason for its blessing is because of the Friday prayers. So the Quran, the Quran will have it written down that on a Friday, make sure that you are especially attentive to the prayer. And when it's time for prayer, close your businesses and go to the stores. So based on that verse, the Islamic countries will have their holiday on Friday.
Yes.
Shops are not allowed to open on Fridays at the Friday time. And generally, people will have the day off on Friday. And that's why kind of Islamically, Friday is the holy day.
I see. It sounds very similar to the Sabbath that's written within the Torah and the Tanakh, which is a seventh day. And some would say, seeing that Islam came 600 years later, that it borrowed from that understanding of the seventh day Sabbath.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And in brief, Imam, why the crescent moon? On top of mosque. I would love, an answer to that question. I've always, wondered.
As far as I'm aware, that's a cultural thing. It doesn't have much to do with Islam. Also, as well as the color green. It's a Pakistani flag. So Pakistanis like it. But it's kind of more of a cultural symbolism. So it's become a part of the Islamic culture.
Yes.
So a lot of Muslims do use it. A lot of mosques use it, and it's kind of a sign of Islam.
I see.
But it wasn't something which was kind of proposed by the Prophet or the Quran.
I see. And do Islam, the broader aspect of Islam, accept the Nation of Islam as legit?
What do you mean by Nation of Islam?
The Nation of Islam with Farrakhan, Malcolm X. Yes.
Oh, okay. Again, Islam has a lot of sects. And all sects, I think, have their pros and cons as well.
Yes.
So legit, I think a lot of Muslims have a lot of objection with the Nation of Islam, as in terms of their ideology and methodology of deriving their rulings and how close they were to the actual teachings of the Prophet.
Yes.
Personally, I've not looked too deeply into their ideology, but I would say they had a lot of good as well.
Yes.
But they definitely did have a lot of problems as well, which you kind of have to be careful with.
For instance, Imam Habib, the Nation of Israel, the Nation of Islam just sparked some outrage based on a comment from Louis Farrakhan, the minister Louis Farrakhan, where he stated that the black people who descended from the slave trade are actually the real Jews. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, I think things like that is where it gets a bit messy and very not scriptural. So these kind of claims which they make, they don't have any scriptural base
within Islam.
No, nothing to do with Islam really. And this is where it gets confusing, like where they're getting this stuff from.
I see. And I want to finish off, Imam Habib. on what I would call the Temple Mount controversy. Because I don't know if you've recently heard the President of the United States stating that he's going to make Jerusalem, what was it, the capital? And yes, so obviously Jerusalem is central to all the major religions. And in Jerusalem, you have the Dome of the Rock. And, the Islam claims, that area belongs to them. Talk to me about that before we close out the program. Why is the Temple Mount considered, universal or important to Islam?
So we believe that here, there's three main sites for Islam. One is Mecca, one is the Prophet's city, which is Medina. They're both in Saudi Arabia. And the third most holy site is this place in Jerusalem.
Yes.
So the Muslims have a lot of reverence for it. It's the third most holy place. So if you're going to Mecca for pilgrimage and you're going to Medina to see the city of the Prophet, the third place you should try and make sure you visit in your lifetime is this place. So that's why it's is the third most holy site for the Muslims. And in terms of its reverence, we believe that the Prophet Jesus will descend here.
Imam, go back up. The Prophet Isa, Jesus?
Yeah.
So you believe Jesus is coming back?
Yeah.
As what? As a prophet or?
No, as a follower of the Prophet Muhammad.
And he's coming back to do what?
Well, it's a long story. It's a separate kind of incident. This is the whole thing. So primarily, he'll come back to bring a lot of guidance into the world. He'll solve a lot of the problems that are going on in the world. He'll defeat the Antichrist, and he'll basically illuminate the world.
And what will Muhammad's role be?
Muhammad won't be here, so he's already passed away.
So Muhammad won't be coming back.
No.
But Isa will. Jesus will.
Yeah. Yes.
And he's coming to fix everything.
Basically, yeah.
And that's written within Islamic records?
Yeah, there's a little bit of dispute, but majority of Muslims definitely do believe that Isa is coming back.
So I guess you would actually verify or validate those that take central or integral the Torah and the Tanakh as scripture. Because they hold the view that Jesus or Isa is actually the son of the creator and he's coming back to, as you state, to actually put the world in its proper place.
Yeah.
Imam, it's been an absolutely fascinating conversation. And listen, I'm just thanking you so much for taking the time out to have this vital conversation with us this evening on Profiler and Truth Music Radio. I thank you so much. Do you have any final word?
You're welcome. No, it's been amazing to be here. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to any feedback we get from everyone as well.
Yes. Well, Imam, all the best to you. Assalamu alaikum again. And just thank you so much for taking the time out. And hopefully in the future, if you would like, I'd like to have a conversation with you again as things progress across the world.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Well, listening audience, there you have it. I hope you find this fascinating, insightful, just profound. I mean, you've heard from Imam Habib and all he has to say in defense of Islam. And, I hope that this serves as some edification or comfort, for those of you who have been seeking truth, trying to validate or verify the Bible, the scriptures. And, I hope that you continue your research and look into Islam. Look at some of the stuff that we've discussed and discover that for yourself. Try to validate it and weigh that up against some of the stuff that the Imam actually spoke on this evening. Well, I hope that you stay locked into Truth Music Radio for the rest of the evening. Keep it locked. We here on Profiler, we give the platform so you can actually hear the different school of thoughts out there. I am Jeremiah, and it's been an absolute pleasure having this conversation with you this evening. Until next time, walk good.
you.